Okay, this is the quiz review. Quiz will be for tomorrow. So classify the real number. And remember, when we're going to classify real numbers, hopefully I put a graphic up over here somewhere so we remember what we can look at there. But we have to use all of the classifications for this number. So for number 1, the negative square root of 225, well, we have to think, is 225 a perfect square? In this case, it is. The negative square root of 225 is really just negative 15. And negative 15 falls into the integer, and that would also poke through the rational. Number 2, negative 1 1/9. So this is not a whole number. It's not a natural number. It's not a integer, even though it has the negative because it's got this fractional or decimal part of it. So negative 1 1/9 is just rational. It is rational because it can be written as a fraction. Number 3, the square root of 41. Well, as soon as we see that square root, if that's not a perfect square inside, then this is irrational, and 41 is not a perfect square. 36 is, 49 is, but nothing in between. So irrational. And as soon as it's irrational, we don't have to think about it anymore. It's only one category it's going to fall into. Same with square root of 17. 16 is a perfect square, and 25 is a perfect square, but nothing in between. So the square root of 17 is also irrational. That's how we do those problems right there. Estimate the square roots. Now these are a little time consuming, and I don't want to make this video too long, so we're going to try to go quite quickly on these. Number 5, we do have to do the integer and to the 10th. So for the integer, we know that this is going to be between 6 and 7 because the square root of 38 is between 36, which is 6 squared, and 49, which is 7 squared. So we know it's in between those two, and it is closer to 36 than it is to 49. So the square root of 38 to the nearest integer is 6. So 6 for part A. For part B, now we have to find the 10th that it's going to fall in between two of the 10ths. Since it's so much closer to the 6th than it is the 7th, I'm going to go with 6.2 and 6.3. Well, 6.2 times 6.2, or 6.2 squared, is 38.44. Well, I'm glad I tried that one first. There's no reason to go to the one higher because it's already higher than 38. I've got to go to the one lower. So I will now switch this to 6.1. And 6.1 squared is not what I just got on my calculator. 6.1 times 6.1 is 37.21. Well, 38, wow, that's pretty close to right in the middle of these, but it is closer to one of these. 38 is only 44 hundredths away from this one, and it's 79 hundredths away from this one. So it is closer to 6.2. So 6.2 would be to the nearest 10th. There we go. For number 6, for part A, we have the negative square root of 99. Negative square root of 99. Well, that's really close to 100, which is the nearest perfect square. So 100 would be on this side. Down would be 9 times 9 is 81. So it's going to be between those two, much closer to the 100, obviously, which is 10 squared. This is 9 squared. So we will go with 10. If not actually 10, it'll be negative 10. Negative 10 for part A. That's the closest integer. To the 10th, since we're so close to this 10, but we're under 10, so I'm going to go with 9.9. And then let's see what that is. So 9.9 times 9 9.9 times 9.9 equals 98.01. So this one is 98.01, which is lower than this. To go higher than this would be 10.0. Okay, so 1/10 higher would be 10.0, and we already know what that'll be, 100 exactly. And 99, is it closer to 100 or closer to 98.01? It is 100 hundredths away from 100, and it's 99 100ths away from 98.01. So it is ever so slightly closer to 99.9. And of course, this will be the negative. Let's not forget that. For number 7, same kind of problem. Trucking along. So for number 7a, the square root of 172. Well, 13 squared is 169. So that's 13 squared. 14 squared is 196. So the square root of 172 is between these two. And we're going to go with, it's only 3 away from 169, and it's 24 away from 196. So 13 is the closest to the integer. For part B, it's much closer to 13 than it is to 14. So let's go with 13.1 to start. And I don't know if we're going to have to try 13.0 or 13.2 for the next one. Let's see. 13.1 times 13.1, 171.61. 171.61. We do have to go up to the next one because this is lower. So 13.2 times 13.2 is 13.2 times 13.2 equals 174.24. 174.24. Well, 172 is only 39 hundredths away here, and 172 is 2 and 24 hundredths away here. So we're closer to the 13.1. And number 8, 115, is going to be between 100, which is 10 squared, and 121, which is 11 squared. It's 15 away here, and it's only 6 away here, so it's closer to 11. For part B, it's not like super close here. It's somewhat in the middle, so let's go with 10.7 to start. And I don't know which way we'll have to go from there. So 10.7 times 10.7 is 114.49. Yikes, that was close. 114.49, but it is lower. So we'll have to go up to the next one so that we know which 2 it falls between. 10.8 times 10.8 is 116.64. 116.64. So it's 51 hundredths if we subtract these two, and 1 64 hundredths if we subtract these two. So it falls between, but it's closer to this one. So 10.7 for that one. Excellent. We're done with those. Explain which number is greater. Or no, which number is greater and explain. Well, we have the square root of 11. For number 9, the square root of 11, we know is going to be between 3 and 4. Okay, it's going to be between 3 and 4 because 3 squared is 9 and 4 squared is 16. Well, it's only 2 away from 3 and it's 5 away from 4 squared, 2 away from 3 squared. So it's closer to the 9. Since it's closer to the 9 than it is the 4, we know it's less than 3.5. It's down. It's not right in the middle. It's less than the 3.5. This is more than 3.5. So which number is bigger? 3 3/5. Because the square root of 11 is less than 3.5, and 3 3/5 is greater than 3.5. So obviously 3 3/5 is the bigger of the two. Number 10. So we're just finding some number we can compare them both to. This one, 1.44, the square root, well, 144 is a perfect square. It would be 12. 12 times 12 is 144. This has 2 decimal places, so this is a perfect square too. We would have 1.2 times 1.2. So the square root of 1.44 equals 1.2, and this equals 1.18 repeating. Which one's bigger? This one, obviously. So 1.2 is larger than 1.18 repeating. That was an easy one to figure out because it actually was a perfect square. Write the decimal as a fraction or a mixed number. So this is where we... And these two are pretty nice and easy. The two on your quiz tomorrow will be nice and easy like this. Remember, the way to do this is to set this equal to x. So x equals 0.7 repeating. Multiply these both by 10, so you would get 10x equals 7.7 repeating. Subtract this from here, so minus x minus 0.7 repeating. Remember, these are two equal things. It says so right here. That's why we can subtract them and not mess up our equation here. 9x equals 7. And now we divide by 9 on both sides to get x by itself, and we get x equals 7/9. Now, if we remember, when it's just one decimal repeating like this, 0.7 repeating, it's just going to be 7/9. And the one on your test is much like that. Number 12, same type of thing. I guess I'll turn it over and do this. For number 12, negative 1 and 63 hundredths of 6 3s repeating. Oh, we set that equal to x. Crumb. Negative 1.63 repeating. Now, we don't multiply by 10 this time. We multiply by 100 because there's 2 digits repeating. So we have 100x equals negative 163.63 repeating. Subtract the original equation. Subtracting a negative is going to be the same as adding. 1.63 repeating. This will be 99x. And this over here will be a negative 162. Divide both sides by 99. And x equals negative 1 and 63/99. Which is, the negative 1 is the whole number part, and these 2 digits repeating go over 99. Now, this can be simplified. Negative 1 and 21 over 33. 3 goes in 21 times, 3 goes in, could be simplified again. Could have divided by 9. Didn't see it. 7/11. Time for a Slurpee. Excellent. Now we're going on to 13 here. Tell whether the triangle with the given side lengths is a right triangle. Well, remember, Pythagorean theorem tells us a squared plus b squared equals c squared. If it's a right triangle, c will be the largest length. So we have 46 squared plus 28 squared, and we're trying to see if it equals 53 squared. Well, 46 times 46 equals 2,116, obviously. We all know our times tables up to 46, I hope. 28 times 28 would be 784, if I remember correctly. And I do. And then 53 times 53 equals something like 2,809. 2,809. We'll add these together. 2,116 plus 784. And we get 2,900. And that does not equal 2,809. So this is a no. Let's look at this one. The longest length is my 3.7, so we'll do, for number 14, 3.5 squared plus 1.2 squared has to be equal to, if this is a right triangle, 3.7 squared. Well, 3.5 times 3.5 equals 12.25. And 1.2 times 1.2 is going to be 1.44. We just did that in an earlier problem. And we're still wondering if that equals 3.7 times 3.7. 13.69. 13.69. Well, if we add these together, 12.25 plus 1.44 does equal 13 and 69/100. So yes, this is a right triangle because a squared plus b squared equaled c squared. And then we have our find the distance problems. And we will use our distance formula. We saw how we derived that yesterday or in the previous lesson. But distance equals the square root x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. We'll use that formula for each of these. So for number 15, we have negative 1 minus negative 3, which is just plus 3 squared, plus negative 5 plus 1 squared. And we need to take the square root of that, of course. And this ends up being negative 1 plus 3 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. Negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4, squared is 16. So we have d equals the square root of 20. D equals the square root of 20. Number 16. Same formula. I'm not going to write it again just for the time here. But d equals 5 minus negative 4, or 5 plus 4 squared, plus 1 minus 2 squared. That'll be 9 squared, which is 81. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Squared is 1. So this will just be the square root of 82, which is not a perfect square, so we can't do anything with that. Number 17. D equals 4 minus 1 squared plus negative 5 minus negative 2. So negative 5 plus 2 squared. 4 minus 1 is 3 squared is 9. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3 squared is also 9. So this will be the square root of 18. Number 18. 7 plus 1 squared plus 4 minus 1 squared. 8 squared is 64. 3 squared is 9. The square root of 73. And the last two from this little problem set. Distance equals the square root of -4 plus 6 squared plus -6 minus 5. -4 plus 6 is going to be 2. Squared is 4. -6 minus 5 is -11. Squared will be 121. So this will be the square root of 125. And for number 20, D equals the square root of 1 plus 1 squared plus 3 minus 4 squared. 1 plus 1 squared, 1 plus 1 is 2, squared is 4. 3 minus 4 is -1, squared is 1. So we have the square root of 5. These next couple I think are easier, even though we could do it the exact same way, find the coordinates of each point and use the exact same formula. How far is the cabin from the peak? That's this line right here that we're looking for, this distance. Well, here's the rest of that triangle. And we can see this is just 3, and here is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can just do an a squared plus b squared equals c squared for number 21. And we know it'll be 3 squared and 5 squared. So 3 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. This is 9 plus 25 equals c squared. 34 equals c squared. The square root of 34 equals c. So the square root of 34 equals c. Now that we know that the square, or c equals the square root of 34, it says here 1 unit equals 1 kilometer, and up here it says round each answer to the nearest tenth. So we're supposed to take this square root of 34. We know that's between 5 and 6, because 5 squared is 25 and 6 squared is 36. We know it's closer to 36. So it's going to be closer to 6, but it says round to the nearest tenth. So we've got, what, 5.7, 5.8, 5.9. Which one's it closest to? So 5.8 times 5.8 equals 33.64. 33.64. This is a little low, so we have to go to the higher one. 5.9 times 5.9 equals 3481. So it's closer to the 5.8. Since every unit is 1 kilometer to the nearest tenth, this is 5.8 kilometers. So on these problems on the bottom here, what we're doing is you have to use the Pythagorean theorem to find the distance. You'll find it to be a square root. And then you have to find that square root to the nearest tenth. So really, it's a lot like these problems and combined with these problems. I'm not going to put those on your quiz, but that is how you would do them, how we just did number 21. I'm not going to go through the rest of these because it won't be on your quiz. Focus on 1 through 20 for your quiz tomorrow.